Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This is either going to be its own video, or if it's too short, I'm just going to include it as part of my goals video, because one of my goals is to complete series, and I thought I would do a bit of a check-in as to how I did with series completion in the year of 2023. So what I've done is I've collated a bunch of graphics where I've split up the books that are a part of series that I read / didn't read / want to continue with, etc., into different categories, and I will go through those. First of all, going through the series that I finished / don't intend to finish, and therefore I count them as ticking them off as a series I've tried or taken off my shelves, and then onto the series that I have yet to read or yet to complete. And I was very surprised at this because I didn't think I had completed that many series. So in terms of my reading goal for the year, I have kept my reading goal the same, and that is in each year to complete 5 series. And in 2023 I certainly did this, and I completed exactly 5. A couple of these were rereads for me, and a couple of these were very short series. So though I am happy with this stat, I think that I will definitely aim for completing some others in the year to come. So the first one is the first 2 are series by KJ Charles, who has become a author by author for me. I don't think I have disliked a single one of their books, and I can hear my dog barking. So the first one is Wanted, a Gentleman, which has an associated novella, Wanted, an Author, both of which I read this year and loved. If you like historical fiction that focuses more on the hijinks than the fact-driven historical fiction, and also has brilliant gay relationships, I would highly recommend a lot of their work. The second being the Will Darling Adventures series, first one being Slippery Creatures, and I reread all 3 books in that series and the 2 novellas associated with it. Next we have Belinda Blinked, which, as you will probably know if you've watched at least one of my videos, is a book series that I gave all 1 star, but it is the erotic novel read by the My Dad Wrote a Porno podcast, which I really enjoy. So because I re-listened to the podcast in its entirety, I ended up finishing, as a result, Belinda Blinked books 1 to 6. Next we have 2 that have asterisks by them, and that's because in 2023 I finished the series as to how many books were out, but both of these have releases in 2024, so I absolutely intend to continue them, but I'm counting them as series that I completed in 2023. The first one of these being Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I loved this series. I'm not going to go through what every single series is about in this video because that will take way too long, but this one I just really want everyone to pick up, so I will go through it. It follows a world where children fall into magical doors, like Alice in Wonderland, like The Wizard of Oz, like Narnia, and for whatever reason they end up back in our world and now can't cope, and they get taken into this home where, in the adults' eyes, they are going there to cope with the hallucinations that they've been having, but in actual fact they are going there to wait for their door to reappear or to come to terms with the fact that their door won't. The other series I have here is Lord of Eternal Night. I think it's called the Dartmoor universe. I can't remember I think it's the Dartmoor universe. And again, just wonderful gay fantasy. I love the relationships, I love the world that this paints, and each book is kind of like a companion novel, so you technically could read them out of order. I wouldn't though. I think that it makes far more sense to read them in order, but I loved this. My next sort of category that I put series into is series where I didn't start them in 2023, but I finished them. So I finished out the Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue series. I'm sure it's called the Something Sibling series, the Montague Sibling series, where we have the 3 main novels and the novella. And so I finished out the last novel. Again, gay book, very much focused on hijinks, loved it. And also I finished out the Shadow and Bone series, so I read all 3, well, I finished out the 3 original books in the trilogy. I also read the 2 short story collections, A Language of Thorns and the Something of Saints, both of which I loved, and I'm very excited to now go on to other work that she's written that fall into that same universe. We're still on books that I consider the series ticked off my shelf, because I had 5 series where I either read the first book or continued in the series and have decided that that's as far as I really want to go with it. So Claimed by the Orc Prince, I think, was a fine reading experience, but I don't think enough happened to really make me want to continue. The same with The Haunting of Tramcar 015. Both of these are a series of quite short books, but honestly I think that they should have been either released with the Tramcar one, released as a series of short stories or short companion novellas in one go. And with the Claimed by the Orc Prince, I think that trilogy should have been just combined into one book and released in total. I can't quite see what this one says. Of Iron and Gold, I think, is the next one that I just read the first book, and I thought it was fine, but I really don't see myself continuing with it. With The Fate of the Stars, I read the first book, really loved it. I had no expectations going in, I'd never heard of it, but I decided to read the second, and just the second book did not work for me. The main character was, I really didn't agree with her choices that she'd made between the events of the end of the first book and the beginning of the second. She was also just really grating on me the entire time, so I just decided not to continue. And with The Avatar's Flames, like, I had no expectations of this going in. From the cover, I really thought it was going to be not very good, frankly. And I really loved it. I thought it did a really good job. And then the second book, the ending was just such a slap in the face that I was just like, I don't want to continue. So that's that. And my biggest category in this sort of series that I consider ticked off my shelf is books that I didn't finish the first book in the series, and therefore I'm not going to continue. A couple of these I picked up specifically because they were gay and they didn't work for me. The Last Girl Standing, the beginning, was more that it just wasn't in my wheelhouse. I don't tend to read slashers. Count Your Lucky Stars, I thought I was picking up another book by this author that was a standalone, and I didn't realise was part of a series that I'd already tried and didn't work for me, so I didn't continue with that. Vampire Slave just was badly written. Something Fabulous. Alexis Hall writes a lot of gay fiction series that seem to be really popular, and none of them have worked for me. I think I've DNF'd every Alexis Hall I've ever tried, so that's a real shame because she seems to be an author that is really beloved. Daughter of the Pirate King, I must have picked up because it was gay, yeah. Read Between the Lines, again, didn't really work. John's downright ridiculous shooting case, I picked up because I liked some of the author's other work, but this one was a bit cheesy. Solstice Prince, I got quite a way through this and I thought it was a really easy read and I liked the relationship, but just there was no stakes whatsoever in the plot. Tyranny of Petticoats, a short story collection that I also picked up because it was gay, didn't work. Dominate Me was badly written. The Last Son, I didn't like the main character. And then some of these I decided not to continue on because they felt a bit too young. Not Your Sidekick being one of those. Inkheart, Reign of the Fallen, Labyrinth Lost are all books that I think I could have really gotten into if I'd read them a little bit younger, but I didn't, and therefore they don't have the nostalgia feel that I think is associated with a lot of these series, especially Inkheart. And then what do I have left that I haven't talked about? We'll Save the Galaxy for Food was purely a title buy. I thought that the title was really fun, but the main character was just such an asshole and I just couldn't get on board with it. And oh, this last one has a really long name. This is The Utterly Uninteresting Unadventurous Tale of Fred the Vampire Accountant. So again, it was a title buy, but honestly, it felt more like smushed together short stories than an actual narrative, and it just felt like we weren't really getting anywhere with each of the individual stories. It just jumped around all over the place. So yeah, that didn't really work for me. And if I total all of those up, that should come to 29 series that I am considering knocked off my shelves, which I'm very happy about. Now on to all of the series that I still intend to finish. This first category of which is ones where I read at least one book in the series during 2023, and I fully intend to continue with the books that are out. The first one being The Knife of Never Letting Go. I reread that first book. I know that I read it in 2009 because we read it for the Carnegie Awards. Our school had a number of students put forward to read all of the nominees. I was one of those people, so I know I read it then. I know I read The Ask and the Answer as well, which is the second book. It's a very well-loved series, which I actually think is those two are there. But I wouldn't be able to read the third and final book in that series if I didn't reread this, so I made progress in that. Next we have Eragon, which I only have one more of the original Inheritance cycle left to read. I reread up to Brissinger, number 3. I need to reread Inheritance. Well, I need to finish out Inheritance, and then I know that Christopher Paolini has come up with a number of other books in this series. Quite recently, actually. I know that there was a short story collection, The Worm, the Witch, the Worm and the something. My brain is thinking of the Mole, the Fox, the Boy and the Horse, or like The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, so I can't think of what it's actually called. And I know that there's an additional book called Mortag, which follows another one of the characters from that original series. So that's one I intend to finish out. I started the Graceling series, which is a series where I've had the books for a while and really wanted to get into it. I think that it's a young adult fantasy that so far really holds up. I'm really enjoying it. We have The Midnight Hunt, which is a, as you can probably see from the cover, a smutty paranormal book, which I swear to you, I'm reading because of the plot. But actually the politics are really interesting, so I'm considering with it. Once and Future, I didn't realise was part of a series or possibly a duology, I don't know. That's a retelling of King Arthur set in the future. The Empress of Salt and Fortune is a series of novellas which really just feel like classic fairy tales. They're really amazing. I can't remember whether or not I read book 2 and 3 in this year or just book 3, but I intend to read all of them. Cloaked in Shadow. Yeah, I just couldn't see the title from here. Cloaked in Shadow is book 1 by the same author as Lord of Eternal Night, that series. So I wanted to check out other things that he's written. I really enjoyed it, so I will continue. Mostly Void, Partially Stars is a collation of the Welcome to Night Vale podcast scripts, and I read the first 2 collections and I really love the podcast. It's very much gentle horror. It follows a made-up town where the paranormal is normal, and the podcast is set up as the regular radio broadcasts from this town. Next we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. I read book 2 in the series, and oh my god, I really enjoyed the first book, and a lot of people were like, no, it's terrible, it's the worst one in the series, blah, blah, blah. And I was really nervous about starting the second book because of the introduction of a love triangle near the end of the first. But I so understand where people are coming from. I might actually reread it just to get the full context of everything that happened in that second book in order to continue. But just wow. How to Sell Your Blood and Fall in Love, I really enjoyed but didn't realise it was the second book in a series. And finally, River of Teeth. This was another one of these really weird gay sci-fi sort of experiences where it was sort of a an alternative history if hippos had been bred like a form of farm animal in the US, and it was so interesting. Next we have a bunch of books or a bunch of series where I have read at least one book in the series, and although I didn't get to the next book in the series during 2023, I do intend to finish out the series. The first one being Call Down the Hawk. So that one is the spin-off trilogy from The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I love that series and I just need to get on it and read those other two books. Interview with a Vampire, read the first book and loved it. I now own a couple of the sequels that I want to get to. City of Ghosts was great. Agatha Christie, I want to complete all the Poirot novels by her. I really love Poirot's character. I really love Agatha Christie's writing, and I just don't know why I haven't continued. The Cruel Prince series, I mean, Holly Black keeps on publishing more books in this series or in this universe, and I just need to get caught up because I really just love her writing. I reread Stealing the Wind a couple of years ago in order to finish out that trilogy, and I need to do so before I forget what happens again. Welcome to Night Vale. So this is from the world of that podcast, and not only have they released the podcast episodes as books, but they've also written books in this universe. So I loved this first one and I want to read more. I read Enchanter, and I know that has a couple of books that came out last year or early this year. Every Day by David Levithan, I read it years ago, and I really didn't like the sound of the book too. So Every Day was a story where the character A, I think his name was, or I think their name was, changes body every day, as in they appear in someone else's body every new day. And the second book in the series was just the first book's plot written from another character's perspective, which was very popular to do when that came out. But I think the third book is going to explain a lot more of the weird goings on that happened at the end of that book. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. White Cat is an older release by Holly Black and doesn't get as much love as her newest stuff, but I really enjoyed this first one, and there are, I believe, 2 more novels in that series. Legends and Lattes, an absolute favourite that came out last year or the year before. I loved it, and I just am so excited to read Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is a prequel novel, I believe. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, I read a little while ago, but has since come out with sequels that I want to pick up. Of Fire and Stars, again, I read a couple of years ago, loved it, just need to continue. Same with Shadow Scent, same with Magician's Guild, all of those fantasy series that I just loved, and I don't know why I haven't continued. And next we have the Terry Pratchett Discworld series, and I love every Terry Pratchett I've ever read, so I just, again, need to continue. Although there are like 40 books in that series, so I don't see myself finishing it out in the next year. One that I might actually have to reread in order to continue is The Abyss Surrounds Us, which was a sci-fi novel about pirates and monsters. It was just so cinematic. It had this wonderful gay relationship, and I wasn't satisfied by the end of it, so I would definitely be interested in continuing. And lastly, The Queens of Innis Lear, which I loved, but I didn't realise was going to get a sequel. This was a retelling of King Lear by Shakespeare, and I believe the next one in the series is a retelling of another Shakespeare play, possibly Macbeth? I'd have to look, but this was a very long book with loads and loads of perspectives, and I just loved it. So if my counting is not wrong, that also adds up to 29. So hopefully by the end of the next year I can knock that back again. But my final category that I want to go through, and how did I think this was going to be a really tiny segment of a existing video. Okay, I'm releasing this one on its own. Is series where I own at least one novel, but I haven't started the series yet. So we have some V.E. Schwab books. I have both This Savage Song duology and A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. Have I ever read V.E. Schwab? Yes, I have read some of her work, but these are her most famous novels, and I'm so excited to read them. I have Rainbow Rowell's Carry On series that I own both novels that are out, I believe. Northern Lights, I own the whole trilogy, and I am not allowed to watch the series until I finish the trilogy. I have a couple of series by Trudy Canavan. Every time I pronounce her name wrong. And I need to get to these after I finish that initial trilogy that I have read the first book for. The 5th season, everybody loves. I'm so excited to read. And then we have The City We Became, also by the same author. Black Leopard, Red Wolf, I've been really excited to get to. The Circle, Six of Crows, now that I've read the Shadow and Bone books, I'm very excited to read that. The Rook is a lesser known fantasy series, but it just sounds so fun. It sounds like the combination of serious situations being made to be mundane, that sort of humour style that I think could really work for me. Gideon the Ninth has been getting so much love, and I'm very excited. The Morning Emporium, I own both of those books, and I think they might be the books that I've owned the longest. I specifically remember buying them from Waterstones probably the year they came out. Like, I've owned them for so long, and I think the reason why I've never got to them is that they don't have audiobook versions available, so I really need to finish that out. Illuminae I really want to read. I have a couple of books by Terry Brooks. Strange the Dreamer, I don't know if I own the first book, but I definitely own the second. And after reading and loving Laini Taylor's other series, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, yeah, very similar to Shadow and Bone, but like after absolutely loving that series, I just want to read everything Laini Taylor has ever written. I bought the Rosewater trilogy a little while ago, and I haven't started it. I think I have all the books that are out in it. The Bone season, I've been told, is great, and I already talked about Darker Shade of Magic. And so those are all the series that I have on my shelves where I want to start them. I should definitely try to get to the series where I've already started it in this year. Although, if you have any advice as to where I should start in terms of the series I haven't read yet, I would love to know your thoughts. So there you have it for my series check-in. I would like to know, with series reading, are you on the end of you read all the series in one go? Or you read the first book, love it, or the first couple and love them, and then you wait so long to read the next one that you have to reread them? Like, are you on either end of that spectrum, or are you in the middle and just are a normal reader and read them in a normal amount of time? I don't know. I really enjoyed looking through all of this and making all of those graphics, and I hope you enjoyed too. This is a different style of video from what I've done before, and I will see you in my... what am I going to film next? Probably my December wrap-up. I will see you then. Bye.